If you walk through London on a winter night today, you're never truly exposed. There is light everywhere, shops glowing, street lamps illuminating every corner, homes sealed against the cold, with central heating and double-glazed windows. Help is never far away. Emergency services are a phone call distant. Shelter is available. The city wraps itself around you with infrastructure designed to keep you safe and warm. But in the winter of 1690, nightfall meant something very different. Cold was not an inconvenience to be briefly tolerated between heated spaces. Darkness was not neutral or benign. And survival through a winter night was never guaranteed, particularly not for the thousands who had nowhere secure to go.
In this video, I use modern AI tools to bring historical records, city maps, mortality bills, and first-hand written accounts to life.
Not to recreate famous events or tell stories about the powerful, but to step with you into an ordinary winter night in London and understand what it actually felt like to endure it when you had few resources and fewer options. This is London in 1690. A city of roughly 500,000 people, the largest city in England, one of the largest in all of Europe. It's a place of extraordinary wealth, concentrated in a few hands, and grinding poverty spread across the majority of the population. The city is crowded beyond what infrastructure can support, unequal in ways that are visible on every street, and sharply divided between those who have security and those who do not. By day, London is loud with the noise of trade and commerce. Markets fill streets with vendors shouting prices. Craftsmen work in shops that spill onto sidewalks. Carts rumble over cobblestones. The city pulses with activity and human energy. But by night, everything contracts. Streets that were crowded at noon narrow into darkness and danger. Doors shut and are barred from inside. Candles become precious commodities, carefully rationed because they cost money that most people don't have. Winter tightens everything. Resources, opportunities, the space between survival and death. Winters in the late 17th century are measurably colder than most winters today. This period is part of what historians call the Little Ice Age, a span of several centuries when European temperatures dropped significantly below historical averages. Frost lingers longer into morning. The Thames freezes with regularity, not just at the edges, but sometimes solid enough to hold weight, solid enough that frost fairs are occasionally held on the ice. Snow stays on the ground for weeks, rather than melting within days. Coal is expensive for most Londoners, requiring money that must compete with spending on food and rent. Wood is increasingly scarce as nearby forests have been depleted by centuries of harvesting. For the poor, fuel for heating must be gathered scrap by scrap or purchased in tiny quantities that provide only brief warmth. Cold doesn't just make life uncomfortable in this era. It actively weakens bodies, making them vulnerable to illness. It spreads respiratory disease through cramped quarters, where people huddle together for warmth. It kills quietly, incrementally, death by death, adding up to winter mortality rates that spike dramatically above summer numbers. Not everyone experiences winter the same way, of course. The wealthy retreat behind thick stone walls into houses with multiple fireplaces blazing in different rooms. They employ servants whose job includes tending those fires through the night, keeping embers alive, adding fuel at intervals, ensuring their employers never truly feel cold's bite. They wear multiple layers of wool and fur. They drink wine and eat hot food. Winter for them is uncomfortable, certainly, but it is survivable with confidence. But most Londoners live very differently from the wealthy minority. Entire families share single rooms in cramped tenements. Sometimes multiple families occupy one, building, subdividing space into smaller and smaller units to extract maximum rent from minimal square footage. Walls are thin, wattle and daub, or rough wood, that does little to block wind. Windows are small openings, often without glass, sealed with cloth or shutters, that reduce light along with drafts. For the poor, warmth is strictly rationed based on available fuel. Fires are allowed to die overnight, because fuel is too precious to burn while sleeping. Clothing is worn constantly, day and night, because undressing means losing the warmth that clothing traps. Sleep is shallow and frequently interrupted by cold, by coughing from others in the room, by the need to shift position to restore circulation to numbed limbs. As evening arrives in winter, the city undergoes a dramatic transformation. Work ends early because productive labour requires light and winter days are short. Daylight fades quickly once the sun drops below the horizon. Markets begin closing, vendors packing away goods they haven't sold. Shutters drop across shop windows. Voices throughout the city lower, as if the darkness demands quieter tones. Those who can afford it hurry home, moving quickly through streets that will soon become dangerous. Those who cannot afford shelter, or who have no home to return to, linger outside because there is literally nowhere else for them to go. London's streets at night are genuinely dangerous in ways modern people struggle to comprehend. There is no street lighting in most areas, no gas lamps, certainly no electric lights, just darkness, broken occasionally by light escaping through shutters or carried by individuals wealthy enough to afford lanterns and servants to carry them. There are no police patrols in any modern sense. Watchmen exist, but they are few in number. Poorly paid, often elderly or infirm men doing this work because they cannot find better employment, and they are largely ineffective at preventing crime or providing security. The physical environment itself becomes treacherous after dark. Mud that was merely inconvenient during the day freezes into hard ruts that can turn ankles. Waste that piles along alleys and in gutters becomes icy obstacles. Ice forms on uneven cobblestones, creating slick surfaces invisible in darkness. A fall in these conditions can mean serious injury, a broken bone, a head wound, injuries that in this era often lead to infection and death. Being injured on a winter street at night, unable to get up, unable to call for help that would come, that is how people die. Thousands of Londoners have no secure shelter whatsoever. Some sleep in doorways of closed shops and shuttered buildings, pressing into recessed entryways that offer minimal protection from wind. Some sleep in stairwells of larger buildings, climbing to landings where they hope building owners won't chase them away. Some crawl under market stalls that provide roof-like covering. Others crowd into lodging houses that offer the barest minimum of shelter. These lodging houses are not inns or hotels in any sense we would recognise. They are survival spaces, often just large rooms, where bodies are packed as tightly as possible. A penny or two, representing perhaps a tenth of a labourer's daily wage, buys a place to sleep for one night. Sometimes this means access to a rope stretched across a room at chest height, where people lean forward and sleep standing, their arms draped over the rope supporting their weight. Others pay slightly more for the privilege of lying on straw scattered on floors, still fully clothed, because removing clothing means losing it to theft and losing crucial warmth. Boots are used as pillows because they're too valuable to risk being stolen while sleeping. In these spaces, privacy does not exist. People sleep shoulder to shoulder with strangers. Air is stale and thick, heavy with the breath and body odour of dozens of people in close quarters. Disease spreads easily in such conditions. Typhus, dysentery, influenza, tuberculosis passing from person to person through the night. But these lodging houses are warmer than the street. They offer some protection from wind and some degree of collective warmth. And crucially, the door closes, creating at least the psychological comfort of being inside rather than completely exposed. For women, night in London carries additional layers of risk beyond the dangers all poor people face. A woman walking alone after dark invites attention that ranges from verbal harassment to physical assault. Being outside at night invites moral judgment. Assumptions are made about why a woman would be out, what she must be doing, what kind of woman she must be. Some women sell small goods in the evening, bread, matches, whatever they can carry. Others sell their labour as laundresses or domestic workers. Some sell sexual access because they have no other way to earn enough money to survive. The boundary between economic necessity and what the law defines as crime is thin and easily crossed, often without the woman having made any choice that felt like a real choice. Arrest is common for women deemed to be soliciting or behaving improperly. Protection from authorities is rare. More often, authorities themselves are the threat. A woman's reputation can be destroyed in a single night, and once destroyed, recovering any kind of respectable position becomes nearly impossible. The law exists throughout London, but it exists unevenly. Constables respond slowly to calls for help, if they respond at all. When they do act, punishment is harsh and public. Whipping, time in stocks or pillories, imprisonment in horrific conditions. Mercy is inconsistent, depending on factors like social status, personal connections, and the particular constable or magistrate involved. Prisons are desperately cold in winter, cells damp and unheated. Being imprisoned during winter can be a death sentence in itself, with prisoners dying from exposure, disease, and neglect. The fear of arrest keeps many people indoors, even when being indoors means crowding into dangerous, unhealthy conditions. Cold systematically weakens the body's ability to fight infection and disease. Respiratory illnesses spread with terrifying speed through cramped rooms where multiple people share air and warmth. Fever moves from person to person, and in an era before antibiotics, fever can easily become fatal. Infections that begin small linger and worsen because the body lacks the resources to heal itself properly. Doctors are expensive, their services beyond the reach of most Londoners. Medicine is limited in effectiveness and often does more harm than good. Many people die quietly during winter, their deaths recorded in parish registers but unmourned beyond their immediate household. Their passing adding to mortality statistics that show winter as the season of death. Fire represents life itself during these winter nights. A single hearth may serve many people, and managing that fire becomes a critical skill and responsibility. Coal must be stretched carefully, each lump making the difference between warmth and cold. Leaving a fire unattended is genuinely dangerous. London burned catastrophically in 1666, an event still fresh in memory, and the fear of fire starting again haunts every decision. About flame and fuel. But letting a fire go out completely is dangerous too, because restarting it requires resources and effort that may not be available in deep night. So people wake repeatedly through the night to tend embers, adding just enough fuel to keep them alive, their sleep fragmented into short periods between checking the fire. Cold never fully leaves even in rooms with fires. It hovers at the edges, waiting. Inside a poor home on a winter night, conditions are stark. Imagine a small room with a low ceiling that traps smoke and heat, but also traps cold air near the floor. Rough walls that may be wood or plaster, full of gaps where wind finds its way through. A single window sealed with cloth or oiled paper rather than expensive glass. A family sleeps together for warmth, children pressed between adults, everyone sharing body heat because it's the only heat they have. Breath fogs the air whenever anyone exhales. Silence in the room is broken by coughing, by children whimpering, by adults shifting position, by the wind outside, rattling shutters and finding cracks. Morning feels impossibly far away in these deep night hours. Some Londoners cannot rest, even if they wanted to, because their work requires them to be active through the night. Night watchmen patrol slowly through dark streets, calling hours and trying to stay alert despite cold and fatigue. Dock workers unload ships at odd hours when tides and ship arrivals demand it, their hands growing numb as they handle cold cargo. Bakers begin work long before dawn, preparing bread for morning markets, working in heat from ovens that at least provides warmth even as it exhausts them. For all these night workers, cold numbs hands and makes mistakes more likely. Fatigue accumulates night by night. Winter nights shorten lives in small incremental ways, wearing down bodies and spirits day by day, season by season. Many turn to faith for comfort and explanation. Prayer is whispered in dark rooms. Scripture passages about endurance and suffering are repeated from memory. Winter is seen variously as a test from God, as punishment for sin, or simply as fate, part of the natural order that must be accepted. Endurance becomes a virtue in itself, because endurance is all that's available. Complaining does not change the temperature. Wishing does not bring spring sooner. What remains is simply persisting, continuing to breathe, continuing to survive each night so that each day becomes possible. The deepest part of night, the hours after midnight and before dawn, is the hardest. Fires burn lowest as fuel runs out. Cold is sharpest because these are the coldest hours of the night. Loneliness settles in, even in crowded rooms, because darkness and cold create isolation even among people pressed together. Those who survive these hours do so quietly, without drama or heroism. Not through courage, courage implies choice, but through simple, stubborn persistence. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, light begins to return. Frost on windows begins to glow faintly with approaching dawn. Smoke rises from chimneys as fires are rebuilt. Another night has been survived, but winter is far from over. Many nights exactly like this one remain ahead. Each must be survived individually. Each takes its toll. Today, winter in London is an inconvenience, a season that requires heavier coats, that creates traffic delays, that makes outdoor activities less pleasant. In 1690, winter was an adversary that killed thousands, an opponent to be survived rather than enjoyed. The same city, the same river, the same streets, but vastly different odds of making it through to spring. No one enduring these winter nights thought they were part of history, or that their suffering would be studied and reconstructed centuries later. They were thinking about warmth, how to get it, how to keep it, how to survive without it. They were thinking about sleep, whether they could achieve it, whether they'd wake up. They were thinking about surviving until morning, which was never guaranteed. But these ordinary nights shaped London more than any grand event. They determined who lived and who weakened, who made it through and who quietly disappeared from the records. Understanding these nights means understanding the vast majority of human experience in the past, not the celebrated moments, but the grinding daily struggle to continue existing. If there's another ordinary moment, another hidden side of history, or another everyday life you'd like me to bring back into view, let me know in the comments.
And if you want to continue this journey through the lives that history usually overlooks, consider subscribing.
Thanks for being here, and thanks for sitting with the cold alongside these people who had no choice but to endure it.